On today's episode, the latest trade news across the AFL landscape, including an intriguing young Docker and a Tiger at the top of the MVP rankings. All that and more on today's episode of Zero Hanger TV. All right, so straight into it. We're going to take a look at some of the player movement space, and Hawthorn are looking at an off-contract Giant.
Yeah, Jake Riccardi's name has popped up in that trade space this week. Now from SCN have reported that Hawthorn are a keen club. He's yet to re-sign. I think Adam Kingsley even confirmed that he's decided to hold off from any contract signing just yet. So that's a really interesting one. Obviously the Hawks, a big need for them is a forward target alongside Mitch Lewis, I feel. Now they've got some great assets in the likes of Fergus Green and some of those coming players like Tyler Brockman, another one who's unsigned. But he'd be a fantastic get, great pairing, two guys that can really work together quite well, I think. But at the same time, what he's been able to do the last few weeks for the Giants and finding some form after playing a lot of VFL footy, it's he's going to be one that they definitely want to hold on to.
Yeah, and great timing because Riccardi just had a massive game over the past weekend.
Him and Green were absolutely fantastic. So he's another one whose price could be going up across the back end of this year, and that's I guess what his decision to hold off will be to show just how high his value can be. Yeah, perfect. And I feel like we talk about him every week, but Carlton are also taking a look. Yeah, there'll be an interesting one. Jake Gresham's the one that's popped up a lot for the Blues in the last few weeks. Multiple reports suggesting that they're having a look at him. As busy as they might be looking to bring in players, they're certainly going to be, I think, prioritising players that they want to retain. Now, Tom De Koning's the big name that keeps getting brought up, and they're one that he's obviously a key pillar for them and has got widespread interest from the likes of Essendon, Sydney, Geelong, and St Kilda, all reported to be showing some interest. So the Blues, or for Blues fans wanting to know, Gresham's kind of an interesting one. I think they've got some similar players, Zach Fisher being one of them, and he's another one whose name's also been thrown up in recent weeks as potential target for rivals. And then you've got likes of like Paddy Dow, who aren't re-signed yet. Whether he'll get a new contract or whether he'll assess his options like he did last year remains to be seen. So the Blues kind of moving both ways in the trade space at the moment.
Yep. And another name that keeps popping up is Miles Bergman.
Yeah, well, reports from just about everywhere are suggesting that just about every Victorian club's into this kid and, comes off contract, has enjoyed a breakout season, which is exactly what you kind of want to have when you're in the situation he's in. He's from Victoria, but he's been absolutely fantastic and one of those players under Ken Hinkley this year who are just hitting personal bests each week. A great intercept option. Had that job on Jeremy Cameron last week and did a fantastic job. Didn't get much of the ball himself, but just showed he can shut down one of the superstars of the competition. So he's one I think we flagged a few weeks ago in our segment, going over the players that are in line for a pay bump and given the expected bidding war from all the reports around his name, he can expect a pretty decent next deal, I think.
Yeah. And another one, Bailey Williams, potentially Crows taking a look?
Yeah, well, there was reports over from SA that him and the Dogs aren't quite seeing eye to eye on contracts, or there's some stale talks there or whatever it might be, but that certainly has supposedly opened up some interest from the Crows, and obviously he's an SA boy as well, so they'll be looking at all of those options as they've flagged throughout the whole year, and free agents who are from South Australia who can add to their list. Mason Redmond being one of them, but Bailey Williams, that kind of utility flank option at the Dogs, is another one that's popped up in recent weeks.
Yeah, and last week we talked about a couple of off-contract Eagles. Another one is Tom Barrass, potentially.
Well, he's contracted, which is kind of makes it kind of an interesting one. Most of the guys we've talked about so far on today's show are out of contract, and as you mentioned, a couple of free agents in Luke Shuey and Jeremy McGovern. They have got a few of them. Tom Barrass isn't one of them. But I think it was 7 News' Mitch Cleary that brought up that he could be one that's getting a bit of a look from rival clubs. There was some documented interest from Sydney, I think a couple of years ago when he was coming off contract. And being a key defender, which is high in demand through this year with the names of Duday, Himmelberg, Radaglia, Mackay also available. He could be one, but yes, contracted. The way the Eagles list strategy is shaping up, they could be potentially happy to part ways with him if it gets them a decent, I think, draft package in return. But I think that one would be on the more unlikely end given his contract status and value to the West Coast.
Yep. Okay. So for West Australians that definitely are off contract, there is an intriguing one in Liam Henry.
Yeah, there's no trade rumours or anything, but I think this is just a really interesting kind of position for Liam Henry to be in at the moment. Now he's played a lot of footy in the waffle this year and he played very well in the waffle for Peel Thunder. I think he's averaging close to 25 touches in more of a midfield role, which is kind of what he's moving toward, and it's kind of what Justin Longmuir has been using him in, but hasn't been a part of the club's recent re-signing spree. So they had Michael Walters and Nat Fyfe, two players that are going to be mostly part of the forward line for the next 2 years. Those two have re-signed. Sam Switkowski added a couple extra seasons onto his current deal. Lachie Schultz has hit a trigger for an extra year, and the club have mentioned that they are hoping to have him sign on for longer soon. So that's kind of all their small forward options. And Liam Henry, being drafted as a small forward wing type, is now being trialled further up the ground. I think his last couple of games since making his return from the waffle, he's playing mostly in the defensive end, on the wing. But the way they're playing at the moment, obviously, he has to be pushed back into defence a little bit. So he's off contract. He's probably not hitting the form that he would like to at this point of the season, and this point of his career, being a top 10 pick from 2019. You look at some of the guys around him, teammates Hayden Young and Caleb Strong being two of those who were drafted right next to him, and where their form's at this year. He's probably not hitting that right now, and I think these next couple of weeks are going to be really interesting to see how he performs and what it could mean for his future. James Aish, out for a week or two with concussion, has given him a chance to play on the wing, and I think it could be a very big week and potentially a catalyst for his future at Fremantle.
Yeah. So intriguing one. Question without notice. So if there is a team that would be looking for that type of player, who do you think would be chasing someone like Henry?
Tough one. Like he's from WA, so there's no go home factor in this case. But you look at maybe a club like Hawthorn, they probably want some of these good small forward options. Like when we mentioned Tyler Brockman earlier, they might be losing Chad Wingard. He's off contract, so maybe the Hawks have a look at him. They obviously don't want to be bringing in players that are going to cost a lot and aren't costing early draft picks. And with Liam Henry's form, they could maybe get in a later pick, not too late, but a later pick to get in someone of his talent and his potential, which is, I think, the big buying factor from hasn't shown heaps, but he's shown glimpses.
Yep. Interesting, intriguing stuff. All right, so moving over to the rookie rankings for this week. Not a lot of movement, just one new name in the rankings.
Yeah, so obviously bye rounds are going to kind of do this, and so it's just meant one change. With Hawthorn having a bye, no games for Seamus Mitchell, who was at 7th, so Mateus Filippo comes in after strong enough game over the weekend. He was right outside, and obviously with no games played, he'll jump in. We were probably expecting Matt Johnson to be the one to jump up into the top 7, but he had a pretty quiet performance, as most Dockers did against GWS. So the rookie rankings, just to go through them again, Harry Shearsall still at 1, Will Ashcroft at 2. Now I think this could be the week, round 15, where we see Ashcroft finally take that top spot, and Shearsall, who's been in top spot since round 1, fall, given the Roos have a bye. And then you've got the likes Bailey Humphrey, Max Michaelani, Ruben Jimby, all coming through as well in those following spots. So the bye rounds are going to be pretty interesting with how they wrap up this week, and we'll have a top 8 from next week onwards.
Yep. Interesting stuff. So honourable mentions, Jasper Fletcher.
Yeah, he was an obvious one. He was absolutely fantastic in his debut. Lovely running goal to kick your first goal in AFL footy. It'll be interesting to see if he holds his spot. They'll have a few players coming back, Brisbane. Certainly should, or at least get a sub role with, I guess, the versatility that he provides. Tyler Young was another one for Richmond. I don't think he's been mentioned too much this year, but obviously made his debut after being picked up through the rookie draft last year. So he was commendable, I think, and probably deserved his first honourable mention of the year. So a couple there.
Yeah. All right. So staying within the prospects and young talent space, we're going to look at some of the father sons that are coming up in the draft. First one off the rank is Will McCabe. We've mentioned him on the show before, but he's an exciting one that's coming up. Yeah.
So for those that didn't see it, we had a pretty insightful draft show a couple of weeks ago with rookie Mies Michael Alvaro, which we had a bit of a look at some of the prospects for this year, on top of how some of the guys are going this year from last year's draft, and it was pretty widespread. So you can find that on our YouTube channel. But one talking point was Will McCabe, who from South Australia, the son of former Hawks defender Luke. Absolutely fantastic form to start this season as an intercepting tall defender. Can play forward as well, and he's one that's kind of bumping up a little bit. So among the father-son prospects, he's certainly one of the leading names this year.
Yep. And in the dogs side of things, Jordan Croft.
Yeah, so I guess if there's two guys to look out for on the father-son front, McCabe and Croft are your two. Jordan Croft certainly been a bit of a bolter by some means with his I guess, goal kicking prowess, his ability as a key forward, a tall forward. I think he's 200 plus centimetres. And certainly he's going to add to the likes of Jamara and Sam Darcy, Aaron Norton, Tim English. They got Jed Bustlinger last year. So that spine of the Bulldogs for the future is going to be really, really exciting. And then another father-son prospect. Whether they need another tall forward or a key position talent remains to be seen in the Bulldogs, but one that they can certainly help building their future. Son of Matt has been fantastic for Vic Metro and in the Coates Talent League this year. So yeah, from a leading names perspective, those two are certainly exciting.
Yeah. Now, me being me, I'm always going to bring up the Ds. In terms of father sons, we've already got Taj Warden on the list, who's doing all right, but there's another one coming up apparently.
Yeah, so Kynan Brown, I think it's Kynan, apologies if it is pronounced differently, but so son of Nathan Brown, former Demon, just offers a lot of run, bit of dash, can play across a couple of lines, which is always really exciting when you have those kind of players come in. So another one for your Ds, so you'll be pretty happy with that one. And then just to kind of touch on, it's not just the 2023 class of father-sons that are impressing. You can expect probably 2 of the top 5 prospects for next year's draft class to be father-sons, one being Levi Ashcroft, brother of Will, son of Marcus Ashcroft. And then, he's been fantastic as a bottom major for Sandringham and was even among Vic Metro's best as a bottom major as well. And then the other from the weekend against Vic Country, South Australia's Tyler Welsh, son of Scott Welsh, kicked 5 goals, has been absolute standout for Woodville West Torrens' under 18 side so far this year as a big key forward, and he's showing plenty of promise. So some pretty exciting stuff to come for the likes of the Hawks, Dogs, Crows, Lions, and your Demons.
Yep. Interesting stuff. One of the best things about AFL footy is the father-son prospect.
I do like it. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. All right. So to wrap up, as always, we have our Zero Hanger MVP, and probably to no surprise, a Tiger at the top. We've got the rankings changing a fair bit.
Yeah, so as you can kind of expect with the bye rounds, and we'll reach the final bye round this weekend, that there's a bit of a shift. And Tim Taranto, his form has been absolutely fantastic across the last few rounds, and that performance against St Kilda on the weekend with his match-winning goal and all his efforts through midfield got him a perfect 20-vote game. So he's the first player to crack 150 votes for the year and sitting exactly on 150. He's ahead of the Bont, who I think has moved up to second spot. He was certainly our leader for a long period, fell off a little bit, but he also had a perfect game with his efforts, 3 goals and a huge match-winning performance against North Melbourne on Sunday. So that's how the top 2 has certainly had a bit of a change-up.
Yep. And with some of them, missing games, so Petrarca, Dacos, Dawson, no votes obviously, and surprisingly Butters, no votes as well.
Yeah, so as mentioned, the Buys are going to bring in a few guys who will have 0 votes because they can't play. As you mentioned, Melbourne in having Petrarca and Oliver among our top 10 will certainly be a couple of them, and then Dacos, Dawson both with 0, Zach Butters with 0. So I think out of last week's top 10 heading into round 14, I think 7 didn't poll votes, whether that was through injury, through form, or through the buys. So that it's added a little bit. Toby Green's been able to take advantage of that. He's shot them straight up, and it'll be interesting to see how it all takes shape come this time next week when we have some of those guys back in play this weekend, and then we also have guys like the Bont and Taranto with buys. So plenty of movement still to come in the MVP when we hit the back end. Yeah,
Toby looks like he's gearing up for a really strong second half of the season. All right, so that wraps it up for Zero Hanger TV today. Thanks, Mitch.
Thanks, Phoenix.
And don't forget, you can catch all the latest AFL news on zerohanger.com. Cheers.